Hey hon, I'm Chloe and this is the outside leg hang without inverting tutorial. My mission here is to share my passion for pole dancing and make pole dancing easy to learn and accessible. This is the 8th video of the intermediate pole trick tutorial series. In order to maximize your training out of all the videos, I highly recommend you to start from the very first video of this playlist, as the tricks will be a progression of the video before. There are actually multiple different ways of getting into an outside leg hang without inverting. We're going to go through 4 different variations of our entries today. The prerequisite for this tutorial is to ensure that you have finished the outside leg hang tutorial. This video is mirrored for your ease of learning. I'll have a red wristband on my right wrist and my right ankle to indicate the right side of my body if you do get confused of the directions. This trick tutorial is created for you for information and educational purposes only, and for you to enjoy learning pole dancing from the comfort of your own home. Please participate at your own risk and don't work beyond your capability, and seek help or spotting when necessary. For any health concerns, please make sure you seek professional medical advice. Please make sure you warm up your body before you start this video. I have a warm up depending on your level under each playlist so that you can try them before you do the trick. If you enjoy this video, please make sure you give it a thumbs up so that I know to create more of these kinds of videos, and consider subscribing to my channel if you haven't yet so that you are notified every single time I upload a video. If you're looking to further your pole journey and combining tricks and dance together, then consider subscribing to my online learning platform, Pole Art Vault, where we put tricks and dance into a combo and learn an entire routine with dance and combos together. You can find the link in the description below for further information. Alrighty, without further ado, let's get into the outside leg hang without inverting tutorial. Now let's get into our conditioning for today. Starting off with our first conditioning, our standing knee hook squat. So we're going to start on the left side of the pole, and I'm going to stand about a foot length away from the pole. Hooking your inside knee at hip height, and we're going to stand nice and tall and pressing our hips down to the floor as you bend through that leg that's on the floor, and you're going to tilt your pelvis backwards as you lean forward. Now when you lean forward, ensuring that you're really squeezing through the back of the knee, then we're going to extend that leg, extend our hips forward, and then tuck the tailbone in, engage through the core. Now, I'm gonna do a side profile so that you can see what's happening through my hip. Once I stand next to the pole, hook the knee at hip height, I'm bending through that leg and I'm pressing my hip back as I lean forward. This is gonna be very essential for our move that we're about to do, so ensure that we get the correct positioning. So I'm pressing my hip into my thigh, and then from there, I'm going to extend that hip forward. Remember, you want to tuck that tailbone in, engage through the core. So you don't want to sort of loosen up your core here. We're still tucking, really pressing our hip forward. And you should feel a lot of squeeze through the hamstring, the back of the thigh here. And we really want to activate that before we get into the move. So let's do 5 on each side. All right, hooking the knee at hip height. Hands to your side, or you can get it behind your head. If you need the help, grab the pole. And 5, 4, really squeeze that ankle all the way to your glute. 2, last one, and squeeze. Well done. Let's move on to the other side. Standing about a foot length away, inside knee at hip height. Really squeeze that ankle all the way to your booty and make sure you're getting that pole right into that knee crease. Hands go behind or on the pole if you need to, and bend through that leg that's on the floor. 5, 4, 3, 2, and last one. Well done. That's your first conditioning done. So let's move on to our next one. Now with our next one, we are going to work on our straddle inverts. Now for those that haven't done straddle inverts, make sure that you've watched that tutorial before you do this one. I'm going to be, I won't be breaking down all the technique today since we've already done that in that video. So go have a look at that one. So, straddle inverts on both sides. Let's try holding for 3 seconds each time. And we're going to do 2 on each side. Getting into your armpit. 3, 2, 1. One more. 3, 2, 1. Perfect. Let's move on to the other side. And 3, 2, 1. Last one. 3, 2, 1. Beautiful. Well done. That is your conditioning done for today. Alrighty, now let's get in to our outside leg hang without inverting tutorial. As I mentioned earlier, we've got 4 different entries today. The prerequisite of this move is to ensure that you have finished your side sit and aerial front hooks. This is our first entry into an outside leg hang. Alrighty, so let's break that one down. Now, our first entry is from a standing knee hook. This is our easiest entry option as we are relatively close to the floor. And obviously, if you need any crash mat or pillows or towels, whatever you can find that's soft, that's probably gonna help you get that peace of mind that you're not going to hit your head onto the floor. So, in our first entry in our standing knee hook, we are starting with our inside leg nice and high. Now, if you can, the higher your knee is, the more space you're going to have to drop your leg down, which is going to be helpful. So I do recommend you to get a little bit of height through that knee. Now, inside hand is going to come nice and high. If you feel like you're going to lose the balance, if your hand is too low, close to your knee, then you can bring it up a little bit higher. Otherwise, keep your hand just above the knee. My outside hand is going to go underneath that knee. Now, bend through your bottom leg and slowly take your outside leg behind the pole until your tummy is on the pole. Now you're gonna slowly drop down into your inside armpit, squeeze the armpit onto the pole, take the hand back, and you're in your outside leg hang. To come out, grab the pole just in front of your cookie, both hands. You can tuck your chin in, unhook that top leg, and then step down. Well done. Now, if you find that entry a bit scary, I totally understand. Remember, you're going to need some crash mat, maybe some pillows or anything soft so that you can land on it. Or you can also alternatively ask someone to spot you. Ensure that the spotter is just underneath your back and your head so that they're able to help you in that position. Now, let's just try this on the other side and then I'll break that down again very slowly. So I'm coming onto my tippy toes, inside hand at shoulder height. Inside leg comes onto the pole and hook that knee nice and firm. Remember, when you come into your position, you want your hip to be in a flexion. So press your inside hip into your thigh and lean away from the pole. Outside hand goes underneath the knee. I'm gonna bend through that bottom leg And then as soon as I take that bottom leg off, I'm pulling through both of the hands. Pull the pole out of the ceiling, and then from there I'm gonna start dropping down. Grab the pole in a cup grip if you need to, and then get that inside armpit onto the pole. Take that inside and off, kick that leg down to the floor, then the other hand comes off into an outside leg hang. To come out, grab the pole back in front of your cookie, unhook your top leg, and then bring your inside leg down, then outside leg down. Well done. There is a first entry into an outside leg hang, which is from a standing knee hook. Now let's get into a next entry, which is from a side sit. Now with your side sit, you can do it from a standing knee hook. It's essentially very similar in terms of the entry. Otherwise, you can climb up the pole first, then come into a side sit. So your side sit entry is either from a standing knee hook, you hook your outside leg on top of it, make sure that you're pressing your hip down, then you're going to slowly take that leg back, slide that hand down and your hips down at the same time. Get that inside thigh onto the pole as if you're coming into a top hand viva. Outside hand goes underneath, slide your head down and then into the leg hang position. Well done. Now on the other side, I'm gonna be showing you from a climb position. Now remember that you can always do this on spin pole as well. You do not have to put it on static. The only reason why I put it on static is that I can just show you the angles that I need to. So I'm coming into a climb first. I'm going to climb. Now from here, I'm hooking my inside leg and then outside leg into a side sit. I'm turning my chest slightly away from the pole, unhook the outside leg, and I'm going to attach the top of the knee onto the pole. I'm going to slide my hand down as I slide my hips down, and then from there, outside hand goes underneath. I'm going to keep sliding the hand down, take the hand off straight into your inside armpit. I'm going to kick that leg down, press that inside armpit onto the pole, then into an outside leg hang. Grab the pole in front of the cookie. You can come into a straddle, then stepping down. Beautiful, well done. So there is your side sit entry. Now again, I did one side from a standing knee hook into a side sit. And then on the other side, I've demonstrated a climb into a side sit, sliding down, dropping down into an outside leg hang. Now let's go through our last two entries now on a spin pole. This is going to be our aerial front hook and aerial back hook entry into an outside leg hang. Now keep in mind that if you haven't watched the aerial front hook and back hook tutorial, I highly recommend you to watch that one first. It's in the beginner's pole trick tutorial series. Now, the reason why I want to go through both is that when you go into a front hook, you are going to end up in a spinning backwards outside leg hang. And when you go into a back hook, then you're going to end up in a spinning forwards outside leg hang. So, I'll show you what I mean, because when you are doing everything, or maybe nothing really makes sense at the moment. So we're coming into a aerial front hook. Spinning climb, aerial front hook. Now make sure that you climb nice and high because you are dropping down a lot. Now from here, I'm going to press my hip into my thigh and then slide that leg down. Hand come underneath, I'm gonna drop down into my armpit, then I'm in my spinning backwards outside leg hang. To come out, grab the pole, straddle your leg, and stepping down. Well done. Now let's try this on the other side, and I'm gonna break it down even more so that things will make a little bit more sense. So, in order to get into a back hook, then remember that you want to turn backwards. So I'm coming into a spinning climb on the other side into a back hook. All right, I'm in my back hook. Now from there, I'm going to start sliding my hands down and slide the leg above the knee. I'm pressing my hip into my thigh, keep sliding the leg and hand at the same time. Once you get your hands nice and low, then my outside hand goes underneath. I'm gonna get it right into my armpit as I drop my head down, press that inside armpit onto the pole, and I'm in my forward spinning outside leg hang. Grab the pole, straddle your legs, then stepping down. Well done. So the aerial front hook, back hook entry is always going to be a little bit confusing in the beginning, obviously because we are spinning, and when we're going upside down while I'm spinning, nothing really makes sense. Just remember that the reason why once you come into your front hook, you end up spinning backwards is because when you're initially upright, you're obviously spinning forward, but as soon as you essentially invert yourself in that same leg position, then you're mirroring that forward spinning and then go into the backward spinning as you drop down into an inverted position. So same obviously on the other side, once you go into your back hook, then you're gonna end up facing forward as you are inverted in that position. So there's all your 4 different entries into an outside leg hang without inverting. So just to revise that, we've gone through our standing knee hook entry, we've gone through our side sit entry, and also from an aerial front hook and back hook spinning. Well done. All right, shall we go through our tips and common mistakes? Now, our first common mistake is our hip extension and flexion. So, in terms of coming into a leg hang, when you're coming into any sort of leg hang positioning, we want to ensure that, especially if you're doing it from any sort of hook position, where, let's say for example, if we're doing an aerial front hook or back hook, our hip is coming in front of the pole. Now, when we drop down into the leg hang, we want to ensure that instead of our hip and thigh far away, we want to control that and contract that so that our hip is pressing into our thigh. Now, this entry isn't always going to be for everyone because the positioning and the angling, maybe you're still working on your hamstring strength. It is quite tricky getting into that position depending on your anatomy and what your strength and weakness is. So remember that you don't always have to learn this entry. If your invert outside leg hang from an invert is much stronger, feel free to do that. This is just an option for those that find that inverting is tricky, or if you're still working on the strength in your invert journey. So once you press your hip into your thigh, that's gonna be much easier for you to get your outside leg behind the pole here. So ensure that you're always pressing your hip into your thigh. Now, again, the best way to keep practicing this is our conditioning exercise that we did initially. So make sure that you keep working on those as well. Now, the next common mistake is not leaning our head away from the pole. This is probably the most common mistake that I see in this entry. I guess human brains, we work because, in a sense, we're always trying to balance ourselves so that our head is straight. As soon as we start tilting away from the center of gravity or anything that's giving us security, is that everything just feels scarier. So rather than tilting away from that, we're trying to pull our head into our main security, which is our pole in this instance. So, meaning, when you drop down, I see a lot of people keeping our head very upright as such, and although this probably feels much more secure, if you don't drop your head away from the pole, you're not going to be able to obviously invert, because inverting means getting our head upside down. So ensure that once you hook your knee, start sliding your hand down, your head goes away with it as well. Again, I know how scary this is. Remember that you can always get a crush mat, get something just underneath for the security as well. Now, speaking of security, I know that as soon as you start getting nervous, your hands, your body starts sweating as well. So remember to really get that right grip aid for your back of your knee, your hands, essentially all the grip points you need for this trick. Now, remember that all the recommended grip aids that I have, they're always in the link in the description. So feel free to use any of those. Otherwise, do your own research. I know that everyone has such diverse body types and sweaty skin, oily skin. I know some people don't feel oily, but it's just like moisture as well. So remember to always get the right grip for you. Now, speaking of grip points, our grip points that we use for this particular move is obviously both of our hands, our knee pit, but it's also the side of the thigh as well. Because the transfer also goes from essentially the outer part of the thigh to the inner part of the thigh, we want to make sure that we are gripped up all around. So I usually grip just the side of the knee, the back of the knee, the top of the calf, and also the bottom of the thigh, and also the sides as well. Just remember that there is a grip shift between, so ensure, especially if you're doing a front hook, back hook, that yes, the outer part of the thigh is going to burn. Then from there, as I turn, you can see that I'm turning through the inner part of the thigh. So ensure that you get all the grip points involved as well. Now, obviously, once you get into your leg hang, you're gonna use your shelf, which is this oblique, the squishiest part of your side. You're gonna need a lot of grip through there. And we are also sliding our grip from the front of the thigh all the way up, especially the outer leg. We're going from here and sliding all the way into the hip. So ensure that you get all the grip as well. And then lastly, it's the back of our shoulder, back of the arm right here. So just around your lats, back of the shoulder, all the way here. So I usually lather grip aid, shaving foam on the back of the arm. So ensure that you use all the grip necessary. Now, next common mistake is our hand positioning. Now with our hand positioning, commonly I see a lot of the hands relatively high in the hook position. So ensure that your hands are sliding both together while you drop that leg behind. So let's say, for example, I take the side sit positioning. Once I come into my side sit, I want to ensure that my hands are sliding as I drop that leg behind the pole. If my hands don't follow with it, then obviously you're not going to be able to bring that leg even further back and head away from the pole, because your arms are fully extended, you're restricted in your motion. So you want to ensure that you're sliding your hands down at the same time. So ultimately, your goal is to slide your hands all the way down so that both of our hands can go underneath the knee. Now, ultimately, once you come into the leg hang position, you want to ensure that your hands are in front of your cookie, because that's the positioning when you come into your leg hang or your straddles. So once you finish dropping down, ensure that both of your hands are underneath the knee. and then fully come into the leg hang position. Now, speaking of sliding down, remember that once you slide your hands down, your legs go with it as well. So let's say in my front hook or back hook position, you can see that I start with my outside ankle behind the pole, but as I drop down, I'm sliding from the back of the ankle all the way to the thigh and then to the hip. I'm really pressing that hip and thigh into the pole. Then I'm dropping down, both hands in front of the cookie, and then into the leg hang position. So remember that your hands and legs, you want it to work in unison and not separate. So ensure that you keep working on your hands and legs, sliding down at the same time. Now lastly, let's go through the transfer between hands on the pole into the armpit. Now this is probably the biggest hurdle of the move, just because that's the portion where I know a lot of people struggle with in terms of the grip transition. Now, the trickiest part is ensuring that you get it right into the armpit. So remember that you want to think like you're squeezing your elbow into the side. So once you're in this position, let's say I'm here. So my outside hand is on top and the inside is on the bottom, here. Now from there, if you feel like you need a little bit of help, then remember that you can always get this hand underneath first. Get your forearm onto the pole so that you're pressing your elbow. Then you can sort of slide into your armpit and then squeeze into your armpit. So that's another option for those that feel like you need almost like that intermediary move. You can always place your forearm onto the pole as if you're doing like a forearm grip climb. Then from there, you're gonna slide into your armpit and then squeeze the pole into your armpit. So give that a go if you need to. Remember, you can always do this from a top-handed viva as well. So for those that don't know what a top-handed viva is, you might want to watch the beginner pole trick tutorial series. This is going to help you. So from a top-handed viva, grab the pole, forearm grip, slide your hands underneath, then into your armpit. So there are all your tips and common mistakes. So I've got a little mindset tip, or even just a tip for you today, especially for those that are struggling through weather change. Now, while in Australia, we go through weather change from going from autumn to winter, some people, and I know for a fact, like a lot of people have been struggling with grip. Now, when it comes to grip, there's multiple different factors to it, and I find that condensation grip sometimes can be so frustrating because it's essentially the difference between the temperature of the pole and your body. Now, if the pole is way too cold and your body is too warm, then there's gonna be condensation, and the moisture between the coldness and the warmness of your body is going to create this wetness between, and the pole gets slippery, but it's not like an oily slippery. Now, on the other hand, if the pole is way too warm and your body's too cold, it also, the same thing happens where there's condensation. So remember that condensation is a real thing. Weather temperature and regulating temperature in your room is going to be really crucial while you train. So one tip I have for you is I recommend you minimize the gap between the temperature of the pole and your body. So at the moment, when I started, just before I started training, when I realized that the pole was really cold, I had to make sure that the temperature in this room is warm because my hands are quite warm. So I made sure that I put the heater on before I started training, and that actually optimizes my training session as well. So if you do have facilities where it allows you to regulate the temperature, I highly recommend you to do that before you start training. Thank you so much for joining me in the outside leg hang without inverting tutorial. I hope you enjoyed it, and I shall see you in the very next tutorial. Bye! Ooh, oh my god, the camera didn't die. Thank goodness. Yay! Ow, cramp.